Ladies and gentlemen, big terror news.
Hey, kia ora koutou, e te whānau. Welcome back to another episode of Big Hairy News. Sorry, I'm not looking at you, Chewy. I'm just doing two things at once. Kia ora, sir. How are you? Back again.
I'm good.
Oh,
I'm just checking my electoral roll status right now.
Are you? You know where that is? That's out where your passport is. Isn't your electoral roll status and your passport, aren't they in the same place?
Well, apparently not. The electoral roll site knows where I am, and I know where it is. So in both cases, we're ahead on that, but not on the passport. Day two.
When do you pull the trigger?
Passport. I'm buying a new passport.
Yeah.
2 weeks' time.
Okay, plenty of time then.
I will keep you posted.
Keep you posted. All right, we have a couple of guests coming on tonight. I had some fun having a chat to the Senior Press Secretary for Simeon Brown today. Simeon Brown said again all through today, the average nurse's salary is $125,000. Now, it's a bit like when we talked last night about Winston Peters talking to Moana, and you say something that's factually correct and they keep on going with the non-factually correct. They've been saying 125,000 for so long. I'm like, we need to figure this out. So with all honesty, I went to the press secretary and I said, we need to see your workings. And I said, because if what you're saying is correct, because I said, I've got other people coming on who tell me that's not the case. I say, but if what you're saying is correct, then we need to know that, and I need to see your workings, because in fairness, negotiating from the average wage being $125,000 to negotiating from the average wage is 75 or 80 or 85 and on it, there's a big difference there. And his press secretary, after 5 o'clock tonight, sent me a document, a PDF document from Te Whatu Ora, and I read it and my eyes glazed over a little bit. There was one sentence in there that was particularly interesting to me, but what I thought I'd do is go, let's send it to our resident numbers nerd, Craig Rennie. And so I was just talking to Craig before the show, and he's agreed to come on after we speak to our next guest, which is Tania Waikato. So we'll be talking to Craig a little bit later on about just about that document, about the claims made in that document for the workings. What are the workings to get to 125K? Chewy just popped over before and got some stickers. And while Chewy was here, I was like, because I feel like at the moment, if this was a recipe, they'd be telling us this cake is made up of eggs, butter, and flour. And I'm like, yeah, but I need to know how many of each to be able to, I need the measurements as well as just that. So what we've been told is we've been told overtime, base salary, and like add-ons. But I need to know the workings. So I read through it and I took something from it, and then I sent it to Craig, and he's taken something from it. So we'll get Craig on just for a 10-minute chat after we speak to Tania about what that's all about. But before we get to Tania, it's been quite a while, guys, since we've been able to throw some new merch at you. And I just want to give 20, 30 seconds to this, Chewy. Just a couple of examples. The lovely Emily has been in touch today, and I'd like to show you a couple of new add-ons to the merch, which hopefully will be on the store, which hopefully by then will be on bhn.nz. By next week. Now that would have been a really good time to go da-na-na, but I haven't shared my screen yet, so I need to go down and do that and that. Shut up.
Smooth.
Shut up. And here's one of them for you Friday night lovelies. How about that one? You like that one?
Ah, it's
cute.
horrible.
Too cute. And then here's going to be a t-shirt next week, and this is all the front will be. You ready? 3, 2, 1. That's dope.
It's all four.
That's dope.
I like that I have orange.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of a hate crime, but I get it.
Purple, and I guess what's this? Wine color? Red and yellow. It's kind of like a Partridge Family with those squares. Was it Partridge Family? I don't remember. It's before my time. The two daddies up the top and the two kids below. Hey? Yeah. So that'll be on merch hopefully by next week. In fact, it can be by next week, even if we haven't got the printing set up quite yet, because we can take some orders and then get them printed. So there you go, whānau. So on tonight's show, we're going to be having a look at the nurses' strike. We're going to involve Craig in that, talking about nurses' salaries. We are also going to be having a look at, there is a former Green Beret, Chewy, a retired lieutenant colonel, so, you know, obviously quite senior in the world of being Green Berets in the Army of America. He went to Israel to be a professional soldier to work on the border between Gaza and Israel, and he's come back with stories of war crimes. So we are going to hear from him tonight via some international media, BBC actually, and we'll be having a real good look at this. And we know, guys, what we keep getting told, these things aren't happening, these things aren't happening, these things aren't happening. Here is someone who's showing his face, who has photographs of himself over there, saying, yes, they are using tank rounds and sending them into people waiting for food. So we'll get to that a bit later on tonight. But for, it's a cheery old show tonight. In fact, if we ever need a palate cleanser, if it gets a bit heavy, I'll just do this every time. And then we can go, oh, it's so cute. And then we can come back to it, because then we can come back to the blood and guts. So yeah, shortly, the nursing strike, also the situation in Gaza. And let's kick off with a story that we've been chasing quite heavily for the last week or so since it came out, and we will not go away from it, which is the change that this government wants to bring in to stop people enrolling in the 13 days leading up to the election. As a reminder, 150,000 New Zealanders did that at the last election. So if this had been in the last election, it potentially could have impacted tens, if not hundreds of thousands of New Zealanders. And our position from second one of hearing about this is, I don't care whether we even agree with you saying you should be registered in time, right? You should be. Yeah, okay, fine. But if people aren't, that doesn't give the government the right to remove their ability to participate in the democratic process. Nothing should be done to hinder someone casting a vote, even if we all agree that they should be enrolled earlier. You might get someone who goes, I don't want to be a part of this, I'm not going to vote. And then a week out go, actually, I think I am going to vote. That person should be able to register to vote. There should be no hindrance to anyone voting in this country ever. So we thought we'd get on some legal advice and have a chat to the smiling assassin herself. It's Tania Waikato. Tania, kia ora.
Kia ora. I like that description, the smiling assassin.
Tell me about it. We talked about this. Well, you know what Chewy said when you weren't here last night about, would follow you into battle. This is, as soon as we talk about you getting onto this, we're like, oh, we can stop now because Tania will sort it out. We can all go have a wee nice.
Joey manifested this by saying that, you see. He said, I would follow that woman into battle, and now look what you've created, Joey.
I'll take that.
So we know the story. Yep, the story so far. And they're saying they're going to push this through: voting reforms, prisoner bans, enrollment changes, what you need to know. We won't go through the whole article here, but because we're going to talk about it. What is the bill? The Electoral Amendment Bill claims it, quote, makes a range of systems improvements to support the efficiency, integrity, and resilience of the electoral system. It makes a suite of changes, including ending same-day voter enrolment, banning prisoner voting, changes to treating on election day, and expanding anonymous political donation limits. Couple of things to bring you up to where we're at so far, Tania. The first is international votes are allowed to arrive back in New Zealand 11 days after the election. That means international votes will be getting counted on day 11, 12 and 13. So basically it's going to be 2 weeks anyway. So we're not talking about 3 weeks. We're talking about another 7 days. So basically, this whole thing is about another 7 days. I also thought about this today, Chewy. I was like, why don't we put a fucking term limit on how long it took you fuckers to decide to get together and make a government? Because I don't know off the top of my head how long that took, but you guys took forever to be able to measure your dicks and then shake hands about it. And it just doesn't seem to make sense that you're focusing on, because of us, it's taking too long. What about you? And the last thing, Tania... Oh, sorry, Joey.
I remember how they approached that as well when people brought up how long the negotiations were taking. We can't rush democracy. We can't rush the negotiations. It's very important. And now we know that Luxon rushed through that, even though it took so long.
Yeah.
Because he agreed to stuff that was never red lines for either party. So what is it? What is it? Was he just playing Flappy Bird on his phone and going, you guys just sort it out and just tell me when we're good because I'm on the way to get my knighthood?
All this, of course, based on the fact that we'll give Chewy credit because he said it last week, on the fact that we got a victory speech on the night of the election. So Luxon made a victory speech on October the 14th. So we knew who was going to be the government. We just didn't know the exact final number down to the microscopic. There's more I want to talk to about that, but Tania, but you've been a guest looking at us for too long, so we should throw you the ball and say, jump in. Jump in, my friend. What's up?
Well, the first thing I want to say is that these law changes are absolutely voter suppression. There's no two ways about it. They will dress it up and say that it's about efficiency and it's about making sure that it doesn't take an extra week to count the votes. Absolute rubbish. This is about voter suppression. This is about making sure that the poor people, the vulnerable people, the people that are least likely to be able to make sure that their details are updated can't vote. And that is one of the most heinous breaches of human rights that I have seen in a very long time, which is the reason why I have taken it upon myself to do something about it. And I didn't want to do this, and this is why I'm blaming you, Chewy. I had enough on my plate already as it was. But this is such a rapid decline of our democracy. As soon as you start attacking the right to vote, you are getting into dangerous territory. And it's not just me saying that. I read the story from Reuters this morning, and I read the story from The Guardian this morning about this. International countries are looking at us now going, New Zealand, you're one of those countries that's suppressing your people from voting. You're one of those countries that we used to laugh at because their election systems weren't fair, and we're now becoming one of those countries. And I am so pissed off about the fact that we are no longer a country where we can literally say everyone gets a fair shot in this country.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm angry about this too. It's interesting you'd say pissed off because you brought up human rights. Of course, then the biggest irony in the world, Judith Collins herself has come out as Attorney General saying this is a breach of the Bill of Rights. Luxon has gone, don't really care. And what we realised the other night, Tania, was that means as the Attorney General, Judith Collins is saying this is a problem, this is in breach of the Bill of Rights, but what's going to happen as an MP is then she'll vote for it. So if no one can see the irony there to make you mad, I mean, nothing's ever going to make you mad.
She already has. It's already passed the first reading. And this is the thing. So for people that don't understand how this works, the Attorney General has to do an assessment of whether or not a bill breaches the Bill of Rights. And if it does, as she's decided it does in several different sections in this case, she has to put a certificate and she has to write a report and she has to explain all the ways that it does. And she's done that, and I've read her report. But as you've said, she then had to vote with the government to support it. So we are, as I said before, we are getting into very dangerous territory for our democracy because now we've got our Attorney General, who's part of the sitting government, saying that this is breaching the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights is part of our unwritten constitution. It doesn't have teeth like in other countries because it's not supreme law. It's not supreme constitutional law, which is one of the bloody problems. So the government can just go, oh, well, we don't care. And this government in particular is just taking liberties over and over with our unwritten constitution, and they're just doing what they like. And the reason they're doing it was made very clear in an article today. Professor Andrew Geddes pointed out that the special votes which come in, which you gave the numbers for earlier, always results in at least 1 or 2 extra seats for the left. And they know that if they curtail the number of people that can vote, and it's going to be hundreds of thousands if we aren't successful in doing what we're doing, which is trying to put in place some reminder systems and get everyone registered beforehand. But, we're only going to be able to limit the damage so much because people just naturally forget. People have busy lives. There are going to be people come voting day 2026 that get turned away at the polling booth, and it's going to be thousands.
Yeah,
and that's why that's like now I'm trying to say to people, you don't understand how big this is going to be. I understand how big it's going to be because the numbers are there, and we might be able to make a dent in it, but we're not going to be able to fix everything.
The other thing, though, just to point out, this is the ludicrous nature of this bill or this proposed law or whatever it's going to be, is that you were saying that the Greens often pick up a seat. That's correct, but they actually normally pick it up off the international vote. Now, the government's not touching the international vote. So in other words, the numbers still will change 2 weeks later, which is why I spoke to the Electoral Commission. That's where I got the numbers from about when the international votes come. I actually phoned them, I spoke to them, I got the details. And so again, 10 days after the election is when they can come in. So they're on the desk on the 11th day, and then they start counting them. That's going to be the 12th day. So we're only talking about between 2 and 9 days difference. That's what this is all about. And as Chewy just said so eloquently, why rush democracy? Are we really going to make these changes, disenfranchise thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, who knows, of people, one person, for the sake of 2 to 9 days of speed, especially when they took so long to actually form a government? It just makes no sense.
Well, see, this is one of the issues that's come up now, and just in the last 2 days, because I started getting messages from people who were saying that they were checking their details because of all of the drama going on, and that they were either not enrolled and they voted at the last election, or that they'd been changed from the Māori roll to the general roll without their consent. And so at first I was like, you guys have just forgotten to update your details. I was a little bit skeptical. But myself and another one of the Facebook admins on one of the big groups that has over 80,000 people in it, we did an experiment last night, and we put up a post and said, hey guys, go check your details and tell us, if there's anything wrong. And we had hundreds and hundreds of people, overseas people as well, who voted in the last election. They hadn't changed their addresses, and the same thing came up over and over again. They were either completely not on the register and had to ring up and re-enroll, or they'd been changed from the Māori roll to the general roll without their knowledge, had to then re-enroll, and also can't go on the Māori roll now because the cutoff date before voting in the local body elections has now passed. So there are some really pissed off people out there. I've had grandmothers in their 60s who voted and lived in the same place for more than 40, 50 years that this has happened to. So this is not an isolated incident. I thought it was in the beginning, and I thought it was just, maybe there was a few people it affected. But the longer this has gone on, the more and more people, and it's still going now. I'm still getting messages. So is our other Facebook group. They're still getting messages. It's a big issue. So you can't assume that the international votes aren't affected by this, because they still have to be registered before the 13-day period as well. So if they miss out and they assume that they're all good, and then it turns out that they're not, and so many people are going, oh my gosh, I thought I was all good, but I'm not, and I've voted at every election since I was 18 years old. I mean, it's really just highlighting, okay, you're going to make this change, but you can't even guarantee that the people that are already registered are on the roll and that they haven't been kicked off for some reason. So for me, it's a very, very dangerous situation for lots of people.
I mean, I'm looking online. I've just done a Google search on changing from Māori roll to electoral roll, and there's nothing in the news. Is anyone talking about this yet? Because obviously, if what you're saying is accurate, it's a huge story.
Yeah, it's actually already made the news cycle. So Deb Debbie was on this afternoon. It's going to be on Marae on Sunday. But it literally, we did this last night and I posted the numbers this morning, but it's already popped off since that happened because it wasn't just an isolated thing. I thought it was isolated, but I think I got 150 in our group overnight. In the other group, there was 200. Debbie was on the tiles this afternoon. They got 300 directly to Te Pāti Māori. So this is not an isolated incident. And then the Electoral Commission actually responded online because they watched all my stories and they responded and said, we will never change someone from the Māori role to the general role without your consent. And I have started posting it ever since they put that up. I have started posting every single person who has sent me their details saying this happened to me, and I'm going to post all of them because this is not isolated and they need to fix this. So yeah, we're all really concerned that everyone's going to have to recheck their details before the next election, whether or not you voted, whether or not you've moved. You're just going to have to recheck them because we can't trust the system to make sure that everything is okay. And some of the excuses that have been coming back for people that have been registered for 20, 30 years, they basically just don't know. They don't know how they've fallen off the system.
Chewy, I just stole your shared screen. Do you want to bring back up what you were saying?
No, it's fine. I was just putting up the website itself. Tania, I have seen some chat on Blue Sky this afternoon from people that have been testing, and I'm just wondering, there's a couple of people that have pointed out that if you let Google fill in from saved details, that might cause this error.
Yeah, that's one thing that causes it, but that definitely does not explain all of them. We've got multiple people that have not moved for extremely long periods of time. I'm talking 20, 30, 40 years, some of these people. So never moved. So there's no reason why their details would change. They are now checking and having to ring up the Electoral Commission because they've just either disappeared completely. But the one that seems to be more common is that they've been changed from the Māori role to the general role when they've always been on the Māori role. So we've got some
an explanation for that. Absolutely.
Yeah, we've got some really angry nannies in their 60s that are ropeable about this. And again, they assumed that they were fine, and the only reason they checked was because I basically put up a post from a couple of people that had messaged me, and I made the same assumption you did. I was like, you guys just aren't filling the form in right. But the numbers that have come out, Te Pāti Māori's been getting direct messages as well all day. They're at about 300. Between our group and the other group, we're at about at least 300. So I'm concerned that this is a far bigger issue than we even assumed in the first place, and nobody at the moment. I keep tagging the Electoral Commission and say, okay, explain this one. They can't explain the ones where people haven't moved. I haven't seen any explanation about the ones for people that haven't moved.
So if there's no explanation, I mean, Occam's razor, the fewest number of assumptions to get to a conclusion. Are you leaning towards suggesting that this is nefarious and this is an action by someone? Or is this just the biggest cock-up computer glitch in the world?
I just think the system doesn't work very well. And one of the explanations that the Electoral Commission put out today is that unless you put every single detail in correctly, as Chewy was saying, it potentially won't work. But what we've been finding from people that have been giving us feedback and basically have rung up and still aren't there is they're being told that sometimes they've been taken off the roll. Sometimes they're being told that they are now dormant. Apparently there's a dormant role, which means that you are not on the active role, but you are still somewhere in the system and you can be restored to the active role. But if you were on the Māori role and you've somehow been taken off it, you can't transfer and you have to start all over again. So there are a number of people right now that are being prevented from voting in the by-election. So this is already having a direct effect on people's right to vote. There are people that changed to the Māori role or were always on the Māori role, wanted to vote in the by-election, now no longer can vote in the by-election. So this is an example in real life happening right now about people being disenfranchised, and it will only be worse if they make it 13 days out, because there's no backup of, oh, sweeties, you know, you can just do it on the day. You can't fix it.
Yeah.
And if we didn't figure this out now, it would have been so much worse. At least we know now, so that we can do these campaigns and we can say to people, get registered, check your details, even if you think you're fine, you need a check.
So what we're saying then, the links you're making here is there'll be a bunch of people who won't realise they've been dropped off the rolls or whatever, turn up to vote, they'll go, you're not on the roll, and they'll go, what? I've been on the roll for 50 years. Yep. Okay, I'll sign up on the day. Oh, you can't sign up on the day anymore. Yep. And then, so as you're saying, people who think they're, like that. I mean, back to that other conversation around other people who are going to miss out. You know, we were talking last night about the kid who turns 18 and the weeks leading up to it, he's a bit slack. And, you know, it's like, my dad enrolled on the day last time. They're not political tragics like that. I'll just do like dad did last time and enroll on the day, get there on the day. You can't do it. This is the thing. I don't have any qualms about the debate about what we should do. You know, I said the other night I should have paid my dog license on time. I didn't. I paid it late, but I should have paid it on time. They're not coming to kill my dog because I paid my dog license, you know, late. It's like, this is saying you are, oh, by the way, you are not allowed to be a part of our democracy because you didn't get around to something.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, you just can't vote and you can't have a say in the election, and that's why people are so angry. I actually wasn't expecting my post to create the drama that it created, to be honest, because I was like Tui, I was like, you guys just, you know, maybe you didn't update it, maybe you didn't fill the form in properly, but we had so many people that have voted for their entire lifetimes, have been on the Māori roll their entire lifetimes, somehow no longer registered or no longer on the Māori roll, and they are pissed, especially the ones that are missing out. Some of them are missing out on the by-election. Some of them are missing out on voting in the local body elections because it's too late for them to change now. And, you know, it's a really critical local body election this year because of the issues with the Māori wards, and they all wanted to vote. So for them, and this is the thing for me, seeing the expression of rage and the expression of how angry, especially some of these older voters who voted their entire lives and were intending to vote, you know, in a specific way for the upcoming elections, that really just brings it home for me that we are going to have to do so much work before this next election to make sure that people don't miss out.
And that's the thing about enrolling on election day, the backstop that it is if there's been any glitches we haven't thought of, you'll be okay because you can still do it on election day. You know, if there's been a computer glitch and we didn't know, that's okay because you can still enroll on election day. And now they're taking it away. So a government who says you won't be able to enrol on election day or the days leading up to it, I don't think they should do it at all. But if they were going to do it, they must guarantee a 100% operational system with no glitches, because if there's a glitch, then they're also going, well, our system made a mistake. We can't be held accountable for that. But the result is you can't vote. So it's like there's just, I said it at the start, no one ever who believes in democracy should put in the way of voting any hurdle, even if it's the hurdle that 99.99% of us step over easily. It should still not be, that hurdle should still not be in front of democracy. Democracy should be at the bottom of a steep hill that we, even if we don't want to do it, we can just roll down and roll into, you know? That's how we should be looking at getting involved in democracy. No hurdles, nothing at all.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And someone in the chat just reminded me, you asked earlier about whether mainstream's picked up on this. Keisha Castle Hughes made a video, which is going to be part of the Marae story on Sunday, saying that this happened to her and that she had voted in every single election. She went and checked her details and she was disappeared. So, you know, this is, and I had so many of my content creator friends, after they saw my post, same thing, they went and checked their own details and shock horror, they were either gone or they'd been changed from one role to another. So this is affecting responsible people. It's not just affecting what David Seymour likes to call drop kicks. Yeah. And for me, I'm glad we did this. I'm so glad we did this, and I'm glad we did it now, because it's better for us to know that the system has these glitches, as you say, and that these are further barriers on top of the bloody 13's barrier that they're going to put in place as well, that we all need to overcome. Let's just, I'm pissed. Everyone's pissed about them doing this, but reality is we have to overcome these barriers, and we have to help our people find ways to overcome these barriers so we can vote these guys out and make them a one-term government.
And what we're talking about here as well is people getting dropped off the Māori roll or being swapped. What about people who aren't on the Māori roll? Has there been reports of people who are on the general roll being dropped off? Do you know? Or is this something that happens by chance is only impacting Māori people?
I have actually gotten quite a few messages from tangata tiriti, and they've sent them to me privately because they feel bad, and they've said to me, I checked and I'm fine, and I feel bad because I see, everything that's happening, and I didn't want other people to, be aware of my white privilege. So I just want you to know that there's no issue. I've had so many messages from people that are in families where there's some people that are Māori, some people that are not, and they've all said, it's only affecting the Māori people. And that's totally anecdotal. We don't have any proof of that, but that's what I'm hearing. And myself and Rick Law, who's the admin for the group that's got 80,000 in it, we tried to do some rough stats about the feedback that we'd gotten on our posts that had gone viral within our groups. And we're seeing about 40% of people having an issue of some type, which is way too many. 40% is way too many, and it's not it's not scientific. But in a group of 80,000 plus our 4,000, that's a decent size in terms of testing it, and that's all it was. We just wanted to test it to see if it was more than just a few people not filling the form out right.
It is anecdotal, but you are saying that you're hearing from lots of people, just none of them happen to be non-Māori. It's all people off the Māori roll back to the general. So
I have not heard one non-Māori person say that they've had this issue.
Well, non-Māori have had it too good for too long, Tania. They need to be taken down a peg or two. Is that right? Other way around? Something like that. What do you think, Joey? Anything else you want to get to?
Yeah, look, as I said, as we went into the show, I checked my details and they seem to be fine. So, I think this is something.
Look at you. How is it over there on the plantation?
No, it's good. Look, this is the thing. This is the takeaway. Look, this is the takeaway. I'm fine. Okay, which I understand is my.
That's all we were worried about, Joey. Everyone in the chat, everyone here, we're just worried about you and make sure you're okay.
Still haven't found my passport though, so there is that. But look, we need to get the word out, and we need as many people that think that they're all sorted and they're on the Māori roll and it's worked before and they don't need to worry about it to just check.
Yeah, and what we're working on is quite a few things now that we are aware of how big potentially this problem could be in the lead up to the next election. So we're working on reminder systems at 6 months, 3 months, and 1 month out. And this is actually good that this has popped off now, because at least we're getting publicity around it. We can get more people on board in terms of publicizing, number one, what's happening, and number two, just getting people to realize you can't just sit back and go, okay, I was all good at the last election, so I'm going to be all good for this election. That's just not going to cut it this time. We all have to check, and we all have to check multiple times, especially before this 13-day window. So we're going to be smashing it. We're going to be hitting this as hard as possible, because it really is something that it's going to define the next election. It's that critical. It could be a close race, and if it is, and we've got all of a sudden 100,000 people or more out of that, that's bad for us.
It's quite a big, long URL to teach people to get to. So I just Googled, am I enrolled to vote? So that's how I found the site. Am I enrolled to vote? It took me to the Google page. It was the top hit. Boom. Yeah. Am I enrolled
to vote? It's in my link tree too, fam. So I've put it in the top one in my link tree, so that anyone who wants to check your details, you can just jump on mine and have a look. But I'm going to be hitting this hard because, as I said, I've got so many people's comments and messages that this has happened to. And because the Electoral Commission basically just put out a big fat denial saying, nah, nothing to see here, guys, I'm making a point of it. I'm going to post all of them. And it might take me a long time, but I don't care. I'm just going to keep posting them.
All right. Shall we any more questions, or can we wrap with Tanya and move on into the night?
No, I think that covers everything. Like I'll be following this to see how it develops.
A downcline in the show once you leave, Tanya, but you've got to do it at some stage.
Hey, but we had the spike at the beginning. That's what you need.
You did have the spike at the beginning. All right, dude. Hey, so the best way to help you or follow along with you is just getting you on TikTok, following you on TikTok. If people want to actually be a part of this and keep an eye on you, keeping an eye on this.
TikTok, Facebook, or Instagram, but actually Facebook at the moment, we're almost at, I think I just ticked over 19,000 followers on Facebook before I came on. We are using the Facebook group that we've created, which is Elections 2026 Aotearoa, as the kind of hub for everything that we're doing here. So if you want to come and join us, that's up to almost 4,000 people in 4 days. So come and join us there. It's a really cool space, actually, for all of our left bloc parties. It's one of the questions you have to ask to join the group, just warning you that if you must say that you support either Labour, the Greens, or Te Pāti Māori to be allowed into this group, because we are creating a safe space for our strategies towards making this a one-term government. But everyone who's on that side, you're all welcome.
Perfect. So that's just Tania Waikato -lawyer on Facebook as well. Perfect, man. Hey, always lovely to have you on. Thanks for jumping in and having a chinwag with us. We appreciate it.
No worries. Thank you for having me, boys. Always a pleasure.
And we look forward to seeing Chewy
General.
in your TikTok feed again. Okay, so I like seeing Chewy in your TikTok feed. It brings me joy. All right, Tanya. See you later.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.
All right, Chewy. There's quite a lot of starred chats in there. I'm just going to message Craig because he'll be coming and joining us in a bit.
Cool.
So you want to get some of those while I do this?
$2 to pay for my lost passport. It's a good and fulsome start.
What is that, mate?
make Tanya
350 to go? Is that 450? Is it like 400 to go?
Make Tanya a mod. Give her a spanner.
I don't think
your mahi is amazing, Tanya. If activism was a rugby game, Tania Waikato would be the entire All Blacks and Black Ferns together. Question for Tanya. Should we be concerned about the constitutional amendment bill removing the 28-day time limit on caretaker governments? Now,
do you want to come back? Tanya's still there. Do you want to come back, Tanya, and answer that?
Is she still there?
I'll go grab her. Hi, Tanya. Welcome back. Do you want to answer the question?
Hi, I'm back. That wasn't very long. Missed me too much.
So we just had a question from the chat there. Should we be concerned about the constitutional amendment bill removing the 28-day time limit on caretaker governments?
Yes, because it's part of these changes that the government is putting through as part of the reform of our electoral laws. And what it will do is what Pat was talking about earlier, which is basically just extend the time that a government that's, the elections already happen and they're just in a caretaker mode. And, they're negotiating who's going to be in the next government and they're having all the coalition talks. So what it does is it takes away that time limit, I guess, the pressure of who's going to be a minister, and it allows them to carry on in their roles, which is essentially what happens anyway. So in that respect, it's not too much of a change. But the problem is if you take away that limit, there's no pressure on them to get it done because they're still going to have the powers of ministers. And in the context of what they're doing, which is sliding very quickly towards fascism and destroying our democracy, I wouldn't trust them, and I don't trust them. I don't trust them to honor the unwritten parts of our constitution that they seem to be hell-bent on getting rid of. Like, why would we give them more power? Why would we willingly change these rules that are there to protect us and give them the opportunity to go, okay, sweet, I've got all my powers. We haven't formed a government yet. We're just going to muck around for however long. And people think, this is the thing. When you're at this stage, people think, oh, that will never happen. I never thought this would ever happen either.
Yeah.
So we are on that slide, and I'm a constitutional law geek. And when you understand how vulnerable our constitution is, any change like that change and these electoral changes, someone said it in the chat right at the beginning, they should go to the bloody people. They should be in a referendum. They should require a supermajority. And that is the thing that is wrong with our democracy, is we do not have a proper constitution, and we need one. And if I get anywhere near that bloody house, that is what I will be doing. That will be my mission. Right. Hopefully that answered your question. Thank you, whoever that was.
And thank you for coming back again. We'll see you in 5 minutes.
No worries.
All right, Tania. All the best. All right. I've sent Craig the link, so let's get to these last couple of super chats.
Cool. Can the lefty parties add enshrining the Bill of Rights into law so it has teeth to their platforms? Is that something that can be done? Peter raises an interesting issue. This will undermine the legitimacies of governments elected. I hate this government, but I accept that it has the authority to act as a government. That would change. You see that in the States with questions of whether the election was rigged. If you think the election is rigged, then you would do whatever is within your power to remove an illegitimate government, right? I can pack a sad if National get in, and I do. But I still don't doubt the legitimacy of our elections. When parties start directly fucking with it, then I start to question it.
Yeah, because even the thing is about the questioning of democracy is it's not as bad as actually demolishing democracy. But if a government got back in, let's say these guys got back in for a second term and they got in by 20,000 votes and 40,000 votes had been not taken on, had been taken off people, you'd be like, but yeah. I'm now questioning your legitimacy, because if you had allowed those votes to happen and more of those late votes go to the left than the right, you might not have been there. So you guys have literally done this to keep yourself in power. I got you. Yep. If there's anything specific to Tania, let's do it now. If not, we'll go to Craig and come back to them after Craig. So if there's anything, but about the chat now, if you want to do any of that.
This is probably good. There were quite a few people in the chat that checked live while they're on the show, and look, they're anecdotally seeing exactly what was being discussed. They were on the Māori roll. They're not there anymore. Wow. Look, this seems like it has legs. It seems like it really needs to be looked at with some urgency.
And if this is a glitch, like a computer systems glitch, then the government then has to go, okay, so we're going to change the rule around getting onto Māori roll, and you people who have slipped off it, you can get back onto it. Like, they can't just then go, well, I guess you're all staying on the general. You know what I mean? Absolutely. So that'll have to be a part of it.
Yeah. And I think one last point before we go and grab Craig very quickly. Check with your older, technically illiterate relatives as well. Like, they often get looked up. They wouldn't think to check at a website. It takes 2 minutes. It could mean that their voice is counted, or it's not.
Well, and also, this feels really uncomfortable to say, but especially if your older relations are Māori, because it doesn't seem to be impacting anybody else, which is more than ironic under this government. Things that affect Māori and nobody else. All right, let's welcome to the show CTU economist Craig Rennie. CTU economist and podcaster Craig Rennie. Good evening, sir. How are you?
Evening, Pat. Evening, Chewy. How are you?
Good, mate.
Good. Now, listen, we are going to go on, once we've talked to you, to talk about the Nurses Action today. But as a part of the Nurses Action, what I did today was I contacted Simeon Brown's senior press secretary and had a chat to him, because we hear Simeon Brown saying, I'll get the exact quote, because, the average nurse might technically be different than, on average, a nurse. So I'll tell you the exact quote. Which he actually said. Don't talk amongst yourselves. Nothing to see here, nothing to see here. So this is what he said on the tiles. With the average nurse earning around $125,000 inclusive of overtime and allowances. So that's what Simeon Brown said today. With the average nurse earning around $125,000. Now that says to me probably the majority of nurses, probably that big group in the middle of their experience, not the most experienced, not the least experienced, the average nurse, half to 2/3 of the way up their pay scale would be earning $125,000. So he said that again today, and I thought, well, we need to check this. So I got a hold of his press secretary. I sent them an email. The email I sent to them was one I was reading from. Maybe I'll just read you the email. It's very short. Hi there. Can you please provide the workings for where Simeon Brown can make the following statement? With the average nurse earning around $125,000, inclusive of overtime and allowances, quote unquote. The minister said this morning at a stand-up on the tiles, I would appreciate an expedited response as we're going to air it this evening talking about this issue. I then found the phone number, because I'm a detective, of the senior press secretary, and I gave him a call and he spoke to me and he was like, yep, I think that's pretty much that's on Te Whatu Ora's website. I'll send you the workings of it. He then sent me the workings. I then sent you the workings because I don't speak Latin. And this is what we're going to bring you on because you are our numbers man. And this is the document that he sent me. He sent me this document, Health New Zealand, Te Whatu Ora, New Zealand Nurses Organisation, Nursing Workforce Fact Sheet. It's quite in detail. I'm going to go back to the start and get it because there's one line in particular, right, that I wanted to focus in on because that's where it says it. So it's got the registered nurse graduate 1, 75K, et cetera, et cetera. Medium penal rate, I'm assuming that means that's the bonuses they talk about, the overtime.
That's the
middle stuff.
penal rate. That's the middle penal rate. So it's different again to the different average you're talking about before. Okay.
Then there's a middle step of 91 and there's a top step. So basically 6+ years, the top step you can get is $106,000. Obviously you can get overtime and other things on there as well. And it's this sentence here. $125,662 is the average salary for both senior and registered nurses and includes overtime, PDRP allowance, and penal rates. Now, the reason I sent it to you, I'm a rodeo clown from Dunedin. I'm a bit simple. I don't see the workings in that. I see a number, 125,662, and then saying overtime, allowances, penal rates. But I don't see, if this is my cake again, I don't see how many eggs and how much flour and how much milk, right? So I don't know how much overtime this is or what's the size of the allowance or what are the penal rates. And to be fair, I've texted him again and I said to him after I received that, oh gosh, it's way down there. Sorry to disturb, but was wondering if you could clarify. The line in the document that you sent saying 125,000 yada, 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 just lists overtime allowances, but still doesn't show the workings for how much overtime would have to be worked to get to that number. I'm really wanting to know how we get to that number, not just that is the number. So we've brought our little, our Hobbiton wizard in to have a chat to us about this. You've had this document for a wee while. Explain away, sir.
Well, I wish I could provide you the clarity that you want. The key number that you got is actually on that table. The base salary, so what a person would be paid if they were doing nothing else, if they were doing their job as contracted full time. The job we want them to do would be well less than 125,000 for the top step. It would be that 106,739. Now that's for a nurse who has, as you say, more than 6 years experience, and is at top of their game, and is highly qualified. So for that's again not the average nurse. The average nurse is not a top step nurse by definition. That's someone who's at the top of the step. Top of the chain. So there will be a lot of nurses who are below that. So again, it's not 125,000. The only way in which you could get to 125,000 is if you're adding essentially $19,000 of allowances and overtime. Now, what we know is that from that is that the overtime is worth about sort of roughly $14,000. Right, so let's make life easy for ourselves in terms of the maths and say it's about 15% of the overall allowance. What that means is someone's working essentially a half a day each week extra in overtime just to receive that rate. And across the period, they're working probably a lot more than that because what we know from the strike today is that many nurses are actually working beyond their overtime rates, essentially for free, because there aren't other nurses to look after the patients that are in the hospitals.
Yeah,
So,
I think we had I think Gary Payenda had a podcast the other day when he was talking to the nurses organisation, and they said things like there's certain things they have to do at the end of each shift to do with clocking out and checking out and then training, and they've now done all that in their own time. They don't get paid for that anymore. So any of that extra work happens after their shift is finished, and they get no remuneration for that as well. So like you're saying, sorry, sir, keep going though. You still with us, Craig?
We lost him.
We might have lost him. Let me just reiterate, maybe we've lost Craig and he'll have to jump back on. The thing that Craig was saying and the thing that I said to Craig this afternoon. You're back? You're back, Craig? Yep, I think you're back, Craig.
Yeah.
I can see you moving.
Yeah,
okay.
Sorry, yes.
That's right. I'll just finish this point I was making and then you come back in. The thing you just said, which we talked about on the phone beforehand, is if it's the average, it's not the median. The median is the middle, or is it the mean? Median's the middle?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. So it's not
the
the
median
median.
is the middle, the mode is the most common, and the mean is the average.
Yeah, okay. So it's not the median. They're not saying that, but they're basically saying it's the average. And in an average, you typically have a good amount above and a good amount below. And I know it doesn't quite work like this, but if the below is 75,000, which it says on that base salary, then the above would be 175,000. So you're not going to have, like for all the 75,000s, you need 175,000 to average that back to 125. And there's no one getting 175,000 as far as we know. So that's why it doesn't work on so many levels. But hopefully you're back now, Craig, and you can take over with the numbers.
We lost him again.
We've lost him again.
Right when we needed him.
I think Mr. Simeon Brown has gotten himself into our algorithms tonight.
Who's the Minister for Internet Connections?
Yeah. Oh, you go. You're back now, Craig? Yeah, see you're moving.
Hopefully, yeah. Apologies, yeah. The irony here is I'm not even using my landline. I'm using mobile telephony, so this should be fine.
We'll go for it now. You take over.
Satellite. Yeah, essentially, long story short, this is not an average. This is not an average that anyone should be using. This number is the 125,000 figure is a figure that's been put out there essentially as advertising. And if it was advertising, it would break advertising standards. Right? It's not a real number, right? So this is a number that includes PDRP. PDRP is an extra qualification that you have to earn on top. Right, so it's not the average nurse again. It's a nurse with another qualification on top. It includes a range of other allowances. If you scroll to the very bottom of this document, Pat, if you keep going down to the very, very bottom,
yeah,
right, if you go up a little bit, you can see all the additional payments that are in there.
30% of nurses have the PDRP.
A P. So it's not the average.
Yeah, so it's 30%, and that only gets you 3,000 to 4,500. That's not that 19,000 you're talking about.
Yeah. Then there's a nurse practitioners are eligible for a professional development allowance.
And we always got to be careful, especially with this government, of those four little letters there, up to $6,000.
Up to, exactly. And then if you go above the leave part, right, a further breakdown of allowances that are available, which again may or may not occur in individual circumstances.
Yeah.
So average is doing a lot of work here, which it shouldn't be doing. You should be concentrating on the base pay. But let's be honest, right? Pay levels are what they are, right? We pay people because that's hopefully that's the rate for that particular piece of work. Cabinet colleagues, so cabinet ministers, who happened to sign off on removing pay equity reforms this year, received a 2.5% pay rise this year, where a minister moved from $313,100 to $320,600 a year before benefits.
Nice, good for some. I mean, yeah, they work so hard, Craig.
They do work hard, but I would suggest that if we're all demonstrating restraint, yesterday it was announced that directors on boards would receive an 80% pay rise. Again, restraint.
Yeah.
And the key thing is that if you go back to that chart again, Pat, if you go back to that document again, Pat, I want to point you to something that's really important, which is actually something they're hiding here. So if you scroll down, there's a lovely graph, and I'm a big fan of a graph, as you're well aware. There you go, nursing salary growth from 2011 to 2024. And I want you to look, so they've helpfully drawn some lines. Now, the dark blue parts of the nurses' pay growth, that's actual pay growth. The light blue parts are pay equity, which is actually paying for underpayment of nurses since forever. And if you look along, you can see CPI, same period, LCI, same period, and HLPI, same period. Most of your listeners will know what the CPI is. That's just inflation. LCI is the labor cost index. That's wage inflation across the period. And HLPI is the household living price index, which is a really helpful number because that helps you tell you what the average costs that households face across that period. What you see is that most nurses have had pay rises, the actual pay rises, not the pay equity changes, essentially below the HLPI, below household costs changing across the period. And in fact, some nurses have seen pay grow at exactly the same rate as CPI, as inflation. What that means is since the 1st of January 2011, nurses have seen no real terms pay increase.
Wow.
Right?
That's,
so when someone's telling you that, these nurses are just being greedy, they're being paid a lot, they're being paid too much, right? Te Whatu Ora's own advice to the minister is that a senior nurse on step 4 has been paid exactly the same as inflation for 13 years.
Yeah, but unfortunately, not unfortunately, but we know that they're not actually saying nurses are being greedy. They're just implying that.
Of course.
Not overtly saying it. They're saying nurses are valued, but they get so much money already. They're implying that they're bad people.
Nurses are valued and we have valued them, is what they're saying. Right? But unfortunately, the data is telling us the value that they've given is exactly the same as inflation.
Craig, is there anything else? Me and Chewy will go and watch some stuff on the nurses' strikes now, but is there anything else from that data or anything else about the strike that you want to leave us with tonight?
Very quickly, again, on that document.
I'm used to doing this for Craig, putting graphs up because I do that with his podcast.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you go to the paragraph below, current NZNO collective agreement negotiations. Yep. And it goes ARA recommendations, and you scroll down and you see there's a thing that says, if you keep going, keep going. You see there's a section that's underlined. Just up a tiny little bit. There you go. Yeah. Read the full recommendations here. And essentially in this document, they say that the Employment Relations Authority, which is the kind of mediator in this space, recommended that the nurses accept the pay offer.
Let me read it word for word. It recommended NZNO take the Health New Zealand offer of 1% for each year of the 2-year term to members for ratification. So it recommended that NZO should take this offer. Correct. That's what it's saying in here.
Now, if you click on the link and you scroll down a little bit, you'll come to a downloadable document. You can a PDF file link. There you go. And if you turn, for those of you who are thoroughly following along at home, paragraph 32 and 33.
18, 19, 22, 32, 33. There's 32.
32. Now then, the real story here is not that they recommended to NZNO that they should take the offer forward for ratification, right? Paragraph 32 says, we cannot recommend that Health New Zealand increase its offer when it does not have the funds to do so, thus putting it in breach of the government's workforce policy statement.
and this would cause it to move backward in its steps to attain financial sustainability, which is required to achieve. So in English, that means?
That means that because there is no money, we can't ask HNZC, we can't ask the Health New Zealand to increase its offer when it simply doesn't have any.
So they said we recommended they take the offer, and in this document they say that we don't have the money for them to take that offer.
Well, we don't have we would like to be able to offer the nurses more money. We would like there to be a better offer, but there isn't any money for a better offer. So we're recommending that you take the offer forward for ratification.
Right.
And then, but para 33 underneath, the first line of which is damning. We could recommend that HNZC seeks further funding. However, there is no rationale that supports this approach because there is no money.
So this document is saying they can't do the 1% because there's no money. What the government needs to do, Health New Zealand, go back and get more money and make them a real offer.
But we can't do that because it would break the agreement.
That cheat sheet we got given basically says we told them to take it, whereas this document says we couldn't offer them that and you guys need more money. So they're incongruent with one another, those two documents.
Yep, and as a consequence, it's not necessarily saying the same thing. In fact, I would argue it's being very careful with its wording. It did recommend that NZNO accepts the offer simply because Health New Zealand has no more money. Health New Zealand has no more money because the government has decided to give it no more money. You are in a catch-22 situation.
Yeah, well, like we always say, a budget for one of their ministries is just what they decide to allow them to have from their endless buckets of money. You got to stick to your budget. What if we can't stick to our budget? Then make cuts. It's never, oh, we'll give you some more then. It's always, you better cut out. They could do both.
They could do both. And you know, and what we saw today and what we heard from nurses today was, you know, what's happening on the front line in nursing, the real pressures that are being placed upon them. And Health New Zealand's offer essentially says, well, we might recognise that, but we can't do anything about it because the government has told us that you can't have any more money. Ergo, that's it.
Yeah. Craig, you always paint such a pretty picture. Do you want to tell the whānau what your podcast is going to be about this week so they know what's coming?
Yep. So next week we have unemployment numbers. So I'm delighted to have the lovely economist Ganesh Nana, who may be familiar to some of your listeners and viewers, coming on the show to help talk about unemployment to date and what we're expecting in the numbers next week and what the different kinds of unemployment are in the system and why the headline rate sometimes isn't the best rate to look at, particularly when it comes to youth unemployment. And hopefully next week on Thursday, the 6th, we should also get unemployment numbers coming out, and so we're gonna real numbers, and so with any luck and a better internet line, we will be doing a live from Statistics New Zealand building, with the numbers are just out. This is what it really means, and so you can get the numbers fresh from Statistics New Zealand.
Yep, I think that's next Wednesday. That's next Wednesday, the 6th, I think. Yeah, cool. All right, Craig. Hey, look, thank you so much for jumping in. It's lovely that our 10-minute chat turned into about 25 minutes. Apologies for that, but it's important that we call these guys on the bullshit if we know, because, and I thank you, we thank you, and I'm sure the audience thank you to be able to come out and pull out some of the things that some of us who don't quite understand the numbers as much might just skate over, and so we really appreciate you being involved. And I guess we'll the other thing about this week's podcast is going to be out on Friday morning, not Thursday morning.
It will be,
because you're recording it with Ganesh tomorrow. So that's the only other thing to remind people. All right, Craig.
We were all at the strike action today. Apologies for the delay.
No reason to apologize. We look forward to that on Friday morning, and I guess I will speak to you tomorrow. Cool. All right, Craig.
Thank you.
All the best. Shall we just cruise straight into the story now, Chewy? It's the 3 News one, and then we can talk about the nurses' strike in general, and then we can keep going. Yes, you good for that? Cool. Or do you want? Is there any chat or anything we want to get to first?
There is something that I want to talk about. I asked my nurse sister back in March. Now this is when I think the Prime Minister said that some nurses earn 130,000, and so I just asked my sister, well, I've never asked you, how much do you make? And she replied back with a number that was pretty close to what I said last night. She's on around 100,000.
Yeah.
And I asked her what work responsibilities, etc., would you have to do to get up to that 120, 130,000 that National seem to think you all make? And she goes, I don't think anybody gets that. Senior nurses get a bit more, but I wouldn't say that much more than what I do. And I do everything a senior nurse does. I just don't have the years of experience, so I have to work my way up. Work your way up the pay scale with years of experience. There might be extra portfolios to do, but that is hours and hours of work for what would be a 50-cent per hour pay rise. So, yeah, I think
that sounds like someone selling pork pies, Chewy. That can't be the case, can it? Surely.
That sounds like our government and these people that are telling nurses in the wake of a global pandemic and all the work that they did there, and is quite keen to say, oh, we value our nurses. We value our nurses. The opportunity that they have to literally value their nurses, they aren't. They're lying to the public about it or fudging their numbers heavily. And then when we have what we had today, the nurses going, you know what? This is enough. We need to do something more. Simeon Brown attacks them in the press. Is that valuing your nurses?
Yeah, that's probably a perfect place to jump into the actual story because there is some footage of that here. From 3 News tonight.
At 9 o'clock this morning, nearly 40,000 healthcare workers went on strike. Many of them took to the streets around the country. Auckland.
Can I just say, I think Simeon Brown put the cunt in country, but that's just my personal opinion.
Christchurch.
Share the wealth.
Nelson. Wellington.
What do we want? When do we want it? Now!
It's personal for me.
I don't know, but I've been told.
My cousin passed away last week. She had a heart attack. And it took 5 hours for healthcare services to respond to her.
Ultimately, we do this for our patients at the end of the day, but we're also people too. And so therefore we need to be able to keep up with the cost of living, keep ourselves nice and healthy, because if we're not healthy and our well-being's not looked after, how can we, look after anybody else?
We want to be able to have a health system which allows people to access the services that they need in a timely manner. And we won't get that if we don't have the staff.
Save staffing! Now! Save staffing!
You can't really argue that point, can you? Safe staffing now. I mean, as someone who's on the sideline looking in to see what these guys are wanting, they want safe staffing. And that means safe staffing for the patients and for the nurses. Yeah. But that story was tragic that we just heard. 5 hours to get the help that someone needed. And perhaps would have still been here. There wasn't safe staffing, it didn't sound like. It's just difficult to argue with the fact that these people who are really in the most important service industry, serving us, want it to be as safe as possible. I don't know how you kind of talk that down, Simeon, but you find a way.
We're out here fighting for safe staffing. We're fighting for adequate pay for our health sector. We're fighting for the government to take some note of what they've done to the health system in New Zealand.
I'm here because I feel like the national health system of New Zealand is being shafted.
The strike is over pay and a system nurses say is dangerously understaffed.
These nurses are fighting for safe staffing every day, and that's the important thing that people understand. Understaffing in hospitals has real consequences on safety.
Health New Zealand says around 4,300 procedures and specialist appointments had to be postponed because of today's strike. The government today pointing the
but if that is even true, and it leads to a safer hospital, then the postponement of some surgeries, I think most people would go, okay, I'd like to get my thing done today. I'll wait till next week if it means we are safer in our hospitals and our nurses are too. I think most people would be okay with that.
I would definitely ask for that reporter to rephrase. This isn't happening because of the strike. The strike is happening because of the pay negotiations.
Yeah, there you go.
So all of those clinics and all of those surgeries got cancelled because Simeon Brown would rather give money to landlords than to nurses. It all keeps coming back to the same thing.
Yep.
The money is there.
Yeah. It's choices, what they choose to go. And it sounds like we're going to hear from Napoleon himself in just a second.
Finger back at nurses and their union.
Striking does not help patients. Thousands of patients have had their care disrupted. Thousands of patients had operations, hips, knees.
Yeah, but how many have had their surgeries disrupted because of the understaffing? You know, when we used to speak, when we spoke to Gary once, Dr. Gary Pienda, and he said the $50 million that this government's giving to the private health institutes, they could have put into the public, and all of the back catalogue, the backed up number of surgeries would have happened. So you're complaining about these guys taking action because of your pay offer causing the delay in some surgeries. What about your handling of the health system? What about how you are staffing the health system? What about how you have got a hiring freeze on? And we know you're saying there's not, because when 60 places are needed, you're letting 2 get hired. So you're playing some kind of semantics game, but still significantly short on numbers. How about addressing that? And then there wouldn't even be a backlog of surgeries to have. So I suspect that your actions, Minister Brown, are probably hampering the number of surgeries happening more so than one day of strike action. But that's just my perspective, Chewy. I could be wrong. Could be.
Cataracts, diagnostics, specialist appointments cancelled, postponed because of the action of the union today. Ultimately, they should get back around the negotiating table rather than walking off the job.
One man was taken into custody after allegedly threatening striking nurses with a knife. Bystanders heard the man say his grandmother was dying in hospital.
If we're not safe, you're not safe.
The strike finishes at 9 a.m. tomorrow.
And again, how can you argue with that? If we're not safe, you're not safe. It's like, but this is the definition of shit uphill, Simeon. This is we are on these guys' sides.
New Zealand is asking people to stay away from emergency departments unless it is an emergency. For striking nurses, this is an emergency too.
I have been through earthquakes, COVID pandemic and terrorist attack. And to be called a healthcare hero doesn't pay our bills.
Heroes that today are asking to be heard.
Pretty good point. Pretty good point. And remember, we've said this before about the nurses. It was more of an American thing than a New Zealand thing. But, you know, during COVID, clapping them at 7 o'clock at night as they were leaving the hospitals. And now this government seems to be clapping more like that. But, I mean, you know.
Simeon is the worst person to front this.
Stop. Finish that sentence. Just to stop there. Simeon's
the worst person. Worst person today. Look, I've heard anecdotes from Dunedin Hospital of what they would consider safe staffing levels on a ward. Yeah. And I have heard that they haven't hit that safe staffing level for months. Months and months and months. I have heard stories of a ward at night when they should have, I think it's 4 or 6 nurses, something like that, where they had 2. And because of an incident with a patient, one of those nurses finished her shift with a potentially broken ankle, because if she went down to A&E to have it looked at, that would leave 1 nurse on that ward for potentially hours. Does that sound safe? There is a reason why money is only part of what they're asking for. They want to be safe in their work. They don't want to be constantly on a chain of being on call, doing huge overtime hours, getting into the position that I've mentioned many, many times with my sister, of her being told, you have too much leave, you have to take it. Okay, I want to take this leave. I'm sorry, we can't spare you. That kind of stuff tends to grate on you after a while. Why are we in a situation when a graduating nursing class has people not hired, 50, 60% hired when it used to be 80? Why are we training nurses to immediately go overseas because we won't give them jobs? And then we are having to import nurses to fill the gaps, and it's still not enough. This system, if you want to talk about efficiency, does that sound efficient? Does it sound safe? Does it sound like good value for money? Because the conversation that we always have around tax and that sort of thing is people don't mind paying tax if they can see the value that they get for their money.
Yeah.
But what we have here is we have a government minister trying to play the public off against nurses, blaming nurses for procedures getting cancelled and operations not saying it's because they're choosing not to be around the negotiating table. Simeon, they were around the negotiating table and you aren't negotiating with them. You're stonewalling them. So what else do they do? How else do they get people's attention on what you're doing to them? And then I am going to draw a straight line from your rhetoric of blaming them for cancelled procedures with the madman in Christchurch that threatened them with a knife.
Yeah.
Now, I don't doubt that man was having a moment of crisis, his relatives dying, like who the fuck knows what's going through his mind. But when a government minister is going on the TV and going, well, it's the nurses that are putting people, in this position, that's what you did. You weaponized a guy having a crisis against nurses that just want to be safe in their work and make sure that the people that they care for are safe as well. So, Simeon, box your ears, you little shit.
Let's get to some super chats. Ryzen says, the government, this shows why we need more checks on our government. If someone with dictatorial ambitions became Prime Minister here, they probably could do it quite easily. Kathy says, oopsie, I pushed the wrong button. That's what I meant to push. Kathy says, according to birth stats, roughly 2,467 people will turn 18 in the 2 weeks prior to the election, so they will be unable to vote till they're 21. Chewy, you know the answer to that. Do you want to say it again?
That is incorrect. From your 17th birthday, you can register to vote.
There you go.
So talk to your young people,
yeah,
and make sure they do it, because this government doesn't want them to vote. And if this government doesn't want someone to do something, then we want the opposite. We want those people to do that. So talk to your young people.
Ryzen says, also, guess who joined the Greens today? Man, that's a hard
Congrats.
game to play.
Welcome.
JC says, Dropkick Day, election dress rehearsal festival. Overred Rover, National Act have bad memories from 2017. Kiwi Bird, upgrade Craig's internet connection fund. Justin says, will democracy elections bankrupt this country? Waiheke says, why aren't we micro-analysing what cops get paid and then compare to nurses' pay? The disparity is ridiculous, especially considering the training nurses do. Yeah, there was a funny stat that came out, when everyone's talking about, a social worker versus an airline, air control person, whatever they're called, air controller. Someone made the point that the social worker needs 4 years of training and another year to get a master's. An air traffic controller takes 6 months. So maybe the social workers should earn a heck of a lot more. They're also about Mayday of the social workers. They're just Mayday for people, not for planes. Andrew says, heavy show, attempted mood change. So upgraded my TV. How about donation train so BHN can broadcast in 4K so I can see Pat's face in high def?
Your 4K TV won't make any difference because we both smear Vaseline on our lenses to make us look
moonlighting. the soft glow lens. Justin Pollock, the government's saying the country is too expensive to run. Andrew says, Chewy Stan in chat, breaking my heart, hashtag Team Pat. Well, there you go.
Oh, you made your choice then, buddy.
Yeah,
you made your choice.
Live with it. I'm even questioning your choice, but that's just me. Danger of Mouse says, Simeon is just the latest in the country. Howie says, feels like dragging at our door. What the fuck? America. FBI Director Kash Patel met on the 9th floor Beehive today. Herald reported it. US Embassy would not confirm. Some shite afoot. Technically, you got most of that right. 7th floor, because that's where Winston's office is. There you go. FBI Director Kash Patel is in New Zealand and has made a visit to the Beehive. Patel, a former advisor to the US President Donald Trump, was seen by the Herald in the basement this afternoon. It's understood Patel has left the Parliament precinct. His visit to the 7th floor of the Beehive suggests he visited Foreign Minister Winston Peters. The Herald approached Peters and Defence Minister Judith Collins. The government has not confirmed his visit. A spokesperson for the US Embassy said, we have many officials visiting to New Zealand and we comment on these at the appropriate moment and when we are in a position to do so. Finance Minister Nikki Loose Lips Willis, speaking to News Talk ZB, confirmed Patel had visited, but said she didn't know why. She claimed the only reason she knew was his presence of a bunch of handsome men in suits on the 7th floor. Hang on, do you know what that means? That means when she sees her colleagues and stuff, they're not. So that's what she's actually saying. Finally,
that's
some handsome men in suits on the 7th floor of the Beehive where she and Peters had offices. Willis refrained from saying anything more, admitting she had probably been overly open, which is probably true, actually. She probably shouldn't have fucking said anything.
Do you think that she's been walking up and down the corridor with his Kash Patel's security details obviously been there, just walking backwards and forwards with arms full of papers, and then occasionally like, oops, I dropped one. Oops, I dropped my papers.
Stop it. How many nurses could we pay with Simeon's income? Thousands. My procedure, says Kaimātara, have been cancelled and it's made my health worse. I still support the cause. I know a tired nurse would be worse than a striking nurse. And finally, for now, Jody says, this is the government of blame. Hashtag T-shirt. Yeah, all right.
Hey,
right, now...
Since we're talking about lying, incompetent ministers of parliament...
Happy moment.
Did you see that we had a visit from one?
New Zealand did. Dunedin did.
Yeah.
No, didn't see.
We had Uffendale in town.
Bedleg. Yep. What was Bedleg up to?
He's very much towing the party line about how councils are terrible with money and dreadful and stuff. But this is a wee remix of his social media video that he put up.
Seesaw. Tauranga City Council's got their coffee machines for $500,000, but Dunedin has gone and topped them with, wait for it, a $600,000 seesaw in the middle of the city. I mean, how stupid do you have to be?
Nick Minute.
So yeah, towing the party line and saying that
nothing.
Councils don't know how to spend money. He suggested that one seesaw cost $600,000. He's wrong. It's 3 seesaws, and it didn't cost us that much at all.
Well,
so
didn't it just say
he gets to bomb that out.
But didn't it just say $244,000, which is still a lot of money? But then someone donated $250 to pay for it. So actually, the council was $6,000 better off for putting those 3 seesaws in.
Yeah.
So if he says councils don't know how to spend money, I would say National doesn't know how to count money, or speak about money, or identify money, to be that far wrong.
But this is what the CNUT is doing, is flying from one end of the country to the other to point at a council, spout off on social media without all the information or willfully ignoring the information. Like it just ties that story that councils shouldn't do nice things for ratepayers.
Yeah.
Just like central government shouldn't do nice things for its citizens. We can't afford it. We've got to have grim little lives.
Now, we've got a pretty heavy story coming up here, and there are some confronting images coming your way. So I'm giving you warnings to start off with, including bullets hitting ground, not people, but grounds, including obviously starving people So I'm just giving you a warning before we do that because, yeah, it's pretty grim, but it's important for us to have a conversation around what's going on. So this is Jeremy Bowen, who's been in the Middle East for about 1 million years. He's probably as old as the Sphinx, actually, working for the BBC. A very good reporter, obviously not allowed into Gaza, but he has a story where he first focuses on what's happening in Gaza, about a particular starving boy as one example of many.
This image of a starving boy and his mother in Gaza has been seen by millions around the world. His name is Mohammed, he's 18 months old, and he weighs 6 kilos.
Fuck. I just wanted to pause on that. Not for dramatic effect, to make sure you heard that. He weighs 6 kilos. 6 kilos.
His name is Mohammed, he's 18 months old, and he weighs 6 kilos. His mother, Hidayah Al-Mutawi, has lost her home and her husband, who was killed, and Mohammed and many others will not survive much longer unless unrestricted aid starts flowing into Gaza.
He can't stand up on his feet or sit because of the fatigue. We can't get baby formula from Mo because the prices are too high. I go from one hospital to another trying to get him formula, but I can hardly find any.
So story number one. This is a sequence of the story that I'm going to play off to you. So the journalists can't get into Gaza, but where they can go is up here to the border of Gaza in Israel, like a tourist site, to look at what's happening in Gaza.
So we went to a spot overlooking Gaza, a vantage point in the frontline town of Sderot, where Hamas attacked and killed Israeli civilians on the 7th of October 2023. Israelis come here to look at the war, only a few miles away. It was hazy, so it was hard to see, and the steady sound of Israeli artillery was carried away on the wind. Since my last visit, vending machines have been installed if anyone needs refreshment.
So, of course, people are starving in Gaza a couple of k's away. But if you want a Coke, we've got you sorted. And whilst you're here, as you can see right now, why don't you take a selfie just to make sure you can remember the moment of this tourist site?
From here, it feels like looking out of one world into another. Not distant, but remote and isolated.
All right, we go into another part of this story now, that's Jeremy Bowen. And again, this is him talking about what's happening in Gaza. Trigger warnings here. You do see bullets hitting the ground, not hitting people. But what is happening is people are queuing up for food and the IDF is shooting at them. And if you look into the sand, you will see the sand kicking up where the bullets are hitting just above the heads of people. This part of the story then goes into talking to Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Aguilar, and he is a former Green Beret who went over to Israel as American as a professional soldier, and he's come back with reports of war crimes. This is about 2.5 minutes. We can watch the whole thing, or Chewy, if you want to cut in, let me know and we can cut in.
Death. This is not a battlefield, though it might look like one. It's a food distribution point in Gaza. Bullets are kicking up the sand as men wait to get food. It's one of 4 sites run by the so-called Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, a joint Israeli-US scheme they say replaces the UN and keeps food away from Hamas. This video is of the foundation's armed American security guards opening fire.
Another warning here. This is actually the Lieutenant Colonel who was videoing this when he was working there. And there are some voices in the background that say something like, oh, you got one. So again, just be aware. I'm just giving you a trigger. We don't see anything, but it's confronting at the least.
I think you hit one.
It was filmed by a US soldier who signed up for the operation in Gaza after he retired and left, he says, when he saw American colleagues and the IDF killing civilians. The soldier is Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Aguilar, a Special Forces veteran of the US Army's Green Berets. He's in Washington. I spoke to him from a spot just near the Gaza border.
I witnessed the Israeli Defense Forces shooting at the crowds of Palestinians. I witnessed the Israeli Defense Forces firing a main gun tank round from the Merkava tank into a crowd of people, destroying a car of civilians that were simply driving away from the site. I witnessed mortar rounds being fired at the crowds of people to keep them controlled.
As a professional soldier with a very long career, what was your professional opinion of what was happening?
My professional opinion of how the sites were established was what I would describe as amateur. Inexperienced, untrained, no idea of how to conduct operations of this magnitude. That would be my most benign assessment. In my most frank assessment, I would say that they're criminal. In my entire career, have I never witnessed the level of brutality and use of indiscriminate and unnecessary force against a civilian population, an unarmed, starving population. I've never witnessed that in all of the places I've been deployed to war until I was in Gaza at the hands of the IDF and U.S. contractors.
Based on the knowledge you have, do you think that you were a witness then to war crimes? I think you're saying that very emphatically.
Without question, I witnessed war crimes. I witnessed war crimes being by the Israeli Defense Forces, without a doubt, using artillery rounds, mortar rounds, firing tank rounds into unarmed civilians is a war crime.
So you've got now, and I'm actually going to add one other clip in. I've chosen to do. In fact, I'll take it down first and come back.
I just want to jump in real quick to talk about the specificity of this guy being a former Green Beret.
Yep.
Now, the Green Berets have a very distinct mission in the US Army. Yes, they're special forces, but their specialization is in insurgency and counterinsurgency. So they will go into a country and train up rebels or anti-government forces. They'll often go in before an invasion. They're the guys that went in and helped the Kurds in northern Iraq during the Gulf War and that sort of thing. So I think if he's pointing out that this is a bad idea, this is not how you conduct anti-insurgent operations, and this is not how you behave, this is how you create insurgents, I think smart people would listen to him.
There's something else I want to show you, because and I'm not even going to get into, well, it's not everyone, but that's a decorated soldier showing his face who has been there, coming back, giving his experience. And just like everyone would say, it's not going to be every Israeli, but then to look at, so that's the war crimes happening by soldiers. And then you've got some citizens of Israel. So this is an Israeli mother of 8 children. And what they do is they try and break into where, she's actually trying to push past people there. They try and break into areas where the food trucks are going. And if they can get into the areas like here where the food trucks are going, then what the military does is they have to shut down the entrance.
So have you managed to block the gate now?
Yeah, the gate is closed, as you can see here. We closed it.
Absolutely.
And the gate will remain closed until they evacuate us if they manage to.
The aid is being
So
blocked.
basically they're getting there on purpose, causing a scene to cause the military to shut down the area because they are a security risk. And the reason they're doing it is to get the gate shut so that the aid cannot go through. And then, of course, you've got other Israelis and other settlers as well doing other things to aid trucks.
In the ensuing weeks, local media identifies some activists from the group ransacking aid trucks. Individuals within the Israeli forces reportedly tipped them off about where to target. Young settlers also stepped in.
Now, I think I remember
of assholes.
Yeah, I remember that footage from quite a while ago. So they're obviously showing things on. But I just wanted to also highlight that the soldiers are doing something, but then civilians are doing things as well. There's 2 other things I wanted to show you. Again, people be aware, confronting, because we're hearing about starving. I actually asked what does the body need to do to starve to death? Just so we're aware, all right? This report is 2 years old, or 1 year old, sorry. Probably means it's like 1 year and 1 month old, because then YouTube says it's 2 years straight away and into its second year. And I just wanted to play for us what happens to the body to starve to death. I know, confronting, but it's MSNBC, so there's not going to be, it's safe for work, so to speak.
When a person is deprived of food for a prolonged period, meaning they're not taking in enough calories to keep up with the body's energy needs, starvation begins to set in. The body relies on stored fats for energy, and within a few days with no food, the human body essentially starts feeding on itself. The body begins to consume the things inside of it to keep us alive, like carbohydrates, fat, the protein parts of tissues. And while the body's working overtime to provide those basic energy needs, other vital organs are being ignored. The heart, the lungs, the ovaries do not get their necessary nutrients. Heart function decreases, and the heart can actually shrink to less than half its size in starvation. Kidney function is impaired. The immune system weakens, meaning a starving person becomes more susceptible to other deadly diseases. The brain is deprived of the proper energy it needs to function. That causes mood swings and difficulty concentrating. Eventually, the body has nothing left to scavenge except for muscle and bones. You become gaunt and weak. There's an ache that comes with extreme hunger, which causes acute physical and mental distress. But that doesn't last long, because your body's already wasted away and soon your heart will fail. That is death by starvation.
I know I can see people in the chat kind of saying too much, too much. I hear you, and if you need to go, go. But I guess not to try and be too much of a activist here is us learning about this and figuring out what happens is so small and insignificant versus what's actually happening to people in the Middle East right now, in Gaza right now. The thing about that story, which is interesting as well, is it's at least a year old. And at the end of that story, they started talking about what's happening in Gaza now. So that means 12, 13, 14, 15 months later, how much worse it is. There's one more thing I want to show you, Chewy. Again, confronting team. In fact, I had a better clip than this. When I say better, it was more accurate. This is about starvation. This is about what the body does, because I want us to know. I want to know, and I want us to know, so we know what we're talking about when these horrific things happen. I had a different clip from this. I couldn't find it again on Twitter, so I'll play this because there's one thing that the other clip said, which he hints to at this, but I'll give you the details. Here we go. This is about the process of starvation.
Each time I go is much, much worse than I expected. On this most recent occasion, I have spent a month out there. I returned 4 days ago. The malnutrition in particular, I mean, many things are worse, but the malnutrition in particular was really quite appalling. Patients of mine died as a result of their malnutrition because of their inability to heal following the major injuries and the major surgery they were requiring. I had children on the pediatric intensive care unit. Children up there were dying. So the malnutrition was really unimaginably bad and much worse than I'd expected.
Now, what he said was the body not able to heal. The other clip that I saw today, which I was silly not to bookmark, was there was a doctor talking about children and gunshot wounds, bullet wounds. And you get to a point where you're so malnourished that the body won't heal them. So the body stops the ability to heal, which means if you've had an accident or an injury, and like this doctor said, you have surgery, the body can't heal itself. The other thing is that first story with Jeremy Bowen talking about getting food, and now it's, sorry to be blunt, but it's too late. Because in the point of malnutrition that many of these people are, their intestinal tracts stop working, never to start working again. So that happens.
This is a known thing.
Yeah, but I know that maybe I'm learning things today, but I guess I wanted us to have a look at a soldier identifying war crimes, civilians contributing to starvation, the starvation that's happening, and what it actually means to starve to death. Because it's one of those, as much as it's hard, we probably shouldn't look away. Chewy.
There's not a single person that's watching us now or listening in the podcast and that sort of thing that understands what it is to be this hungry.
Yeah, of course.
We have no measure because we've never been in that position. But I remember reading stories and eyewitness accounts from the liberation of the concentration camps at the end of World War II, where they found camps full of starving people, and the reaction was to feed them. And they started feeding them, and people died from being fed because they were so hungry. Their bodies didn't know how to deal with it. Now, I want to put that into perspective of, there was a little bit of good news that planes full of food were going to power drop into Gaza. They weren't going to send the trucks in, but they were going to drop parachutes in. It's a terribly inefficient way to feed people. Like when militaries use power drops, they create a zone, they control it, they're expecting to come in. When you do it in somewhere like Gaza, 11 people got injured by falling food pellets. Starving people ripped into those food pellets and immediately started to feed themselves, and I can only guess what happened next.
Yeah. There's something
uncontrolled.
There's something I learned today about drops, and this really surprised me. One of those big, massive planes that's rolling the things out the back, those planes can carry as much as one lorry. So the amount of food and aid that they're dropping from a plane, think about the cost, the difficulty, all those things to load a plane, a Hercules style plane up, fly it, get across, drop it, versus getting in a truck and driving it across the border and then turning around and getting another load and driving it across the border. So whilst sometimes a drop from a plane is essential in some situations, the word you used was inefficient. In so many ways, one of those huge planes only carries as much as one lorry. So if Israel were allowing the aid in, dozens of lorries. Yeah, so when Israel says, look, we're allowing drops to come in, yeah, what, for every one plane and the time and the effort and the money to set, you could have probably sent 50 lorries in. So yeah, performative, Joey.
Yeah, the UN should be manning those checkpoints, and the UN should be keeping Israeli settlers the fuck out of there. The UN should be controlling the aid convoys. The UN should be distributing the food to the hungry and the medicine to the people that need it. But we don't get that because the UN is fucking hamstrung by the ghosts of the Cold War, the ghosts of the winners of World War II. So we get to watch this instead. Like, someone that is that hungry is closer to being an animal in their reactions than to being a human. You don't think rationally. If you're that close to food, if you're that close to water, if you are that hungry, you will not listen to instructions. You won't follow cues. And so when the food's being protected by trigger-happy fucking mercenaries from the US who think it's fun to shoot at starving people, you are going to get deaths. When those people are gathering for food and medicine under the guns of the IDF, young people that have been raised from birth to dehumanize the Palestinians, is it any surprise that every now and then someone will loose off a main cannon round from a Merkava tank into a group of people? That these people, snipers hunt these people? And at every step of the way, the Israeli regime has lied to us. They lied to us about what happened on October 7th. They lied to us about the negotiations with Hamas. They lied to us that Hamas had never offered up the hostages. They've lied to us about the deliberate targeting of aid workers and reporters. They've lied to us about massacring a convoy full of ambulances that they buried in a mass grave. At every stage, when the Israeli forces have told us something, it has been proven to be a lie almost every time. So why would we trust them now? Why is it that we can see this imagery, that this Green Beret can very clearly say what I saw was a war crime, but our own foreign minister hasn't quite opened up his mind yet?
Yeah.
hasn't quite decided whether it is or it isn't because someone in a courtroom hasn't told him so yet.
Yeah.
This stuff is sickening. This stuff is infuriating. This stuff will stay with me for the rest of my life. And I, hand on heart, do not know how I will react to the next Israeli I meet.
I did say tonight there'd be some heavy stuff, and I had to give you warnings, but I actually believe in the don't look away thing as well. I think it's important that we know what we're fighting for. You know, we can all say free Palestine, and we can all, you know, we can cut the we can get the slogans out there. So I'm not throwing shade on any of that, but I think it's also important to know what we're doing it for and why. And I think that's what I wanted to do tonight. But I think we're going to leave it there for the night. You know, it does feel strange to kind of go into a bouncy song to leave, but we'll put that on and we'll.
I will say one thing, one other thing, because it is heavy to look at this stuff. Throughout the country on Saturday, there will be some sort of protest or remembrance action.
Yeah.
Whether you've gone multiple times since this whole thing started or whether you've never gone at all, go.
Yeah, good point.
Be seen. Be one of the people that stands up and says, I know what's going on and I won't look away.
Yeah.
Be someone that the Palestinian members of this country can see that there are people standing with them, and be someone that our government will look at and go, oh shit, we might have read this wrong. We need to do something. And that takes people. But I guarantee you, when you come away from something like that and you know you're not alone, you know you've done a good thing, you will feel better.
Okay.
You need to do something.
All right, team, just a couple of chats to finish with because they're relevant. We're quickly turning this planet into the hell we conceptualized from 8 Vasta, and Peter says war, famine, pestilence, and death. Thank you for being with us tonight. We're just going to go out tonight. I don't think we're going to come back in during the song, Chewy, and say something pithy and funny. So we'll just say good night for the night tonight, team. Thank you for being with us. Appreciate Craig joined us and Tania joined us. Remember, there is a lot going on internationally that we need to keep focused on. There is a lot going on nationally as well. Now, you know, economies of scale, of seriousness, I'm completely there. But we want to keep we have the ability to keep our eye on more than one ball. Right, so we can look at what's happening in the Middle East and keep our eye on that. We can have a look at what's happening in New Zealand and keep our eye on that, and you know, appropriately apportion how we're dealing with each of those when it happens. So keep your eye on the ball, whānau, or balls, plural, whānau, and we will catch you. Oh, Chewy, we won't catch you, will we? You're off for a bit. Off tomorrow?
No, I will be back in like a week and a bit.
Yeah. So
yeah, I'm away
safe travels.
All of next week. There may be a few stickers appearing around the parliamentary precinct next week. I'm just saying.
Safe travels to Chewy over the next... Well, I'm back tomorrow night with Emily. We'll tell you about the rest of the week after that. All right, team. All the best. We'll catch you tomorrow night for another edition of Big Hairy News. Hooroo.
Cheers, fan.